we, Chicky?
Heritage Precinct.
Of?
Cromwell.
We departed early for our long road trip ahead. Our first stop at the Cromwell Heritage Precinct was only an hour drive northeast of Queenstown.
So we're here at the Cromwell Heritage Precinct, and this is the old town of Cromwell back in the late 1800s when this area was established as a gold mining region. Behind us here we have the junction of the Akaroa and the Clutha River, and this area here was actually flooded back in 1992 to create the lake that we now know as Lake Dunstan. Like the horse? Is he a good horse?
Part of the old town was submerged under the flooded lake. Some of the building foundations were still visible though in the water. The next part of our journey took us over the high and scenic Lindis Pass and down into the Canterbury region via the Mackenzie Country Basin. The basin was named after a sheep rustler known as James Mackenzie, who would steal flocks of sheep and hide out in the region. The outlaw escaped from prison twice, and his dog Friday was also put to trial. Both have gone down in New Zealand folklore history. Our journey to Christchurch was delayed several hours due to a serious car crash at the Mount Cook lookout. We passed the time by playing cards and taking in the majestic scenery.
So now we wait.
The traffic started to move again around sunset, giving us the perfect opportunity to get some photographs of the iconic Church of the Good Shepherd in the fading light. We arrived late into Christchurch, meeting with our host the following day for Yum Cha, before heading out to Akaroa for a Chinese tourism exposition.
It's already...
Alright.
Yummy. My favorite.
How do you eat it? You just crunch it?
You push it.
And then
You eat the bones or you don't eat the bones, doesn't matter.
I don't eat the bowl.
How's the chicken feet?
It's actually out to hold. It's weird to get.
What do you think?
Oh, it tastes like feet. It smells like feet. So we have here some silo accommodation. Old grain storage turned into little apartments.
The harbour of Akaroa is situated in the crater of a collapsed volcano, and New Zealand itself sits on the border of two tectonic plates, the Australian Indonesian and the Pacific continental plate, making it a hotspot for geothermal and volcanic activity. In 1830, a British captain named John Stewart helped the chief of a northern iwi, or Maori tribe, kidnap the local chief and his family from the nearby village of Takapuneki. The village was then destroyed. Afterwards, the harbour was then used as a whaling base for the British and the French in the 1830s.
So we're down here at the township of Akaroa, which is a kaitahu, a local Maori word for long harbour. And it sits on the Banks Peninsula about 84 kilometres out from Christchurch in the Canterbury region of the South Island of New Zealand. The surrounding region around us here is actually formed from the crater of a volcano, two volcanoes I should say, that were formed between 6 and 11 million years ago. And this has formed a big, giant, massive caldera, which is essentially what happens when the volcano itself collapses in on itself. And it's formed this beautiful harbour which leads out here to the Pacific Ocean.
In 1938, French captain Jean-Francois Langlois purchased land from the Greater Banks Peninsula for £240 of 12 Maori chiefs. By the time the settlers had arrived in late 1840, the British had already laid claim to the Banks Peninsula. There are still many areas that show a French influence, such as the street names. The original Akaroa lighthouse was built in 1879, about 300 metres above sea level. It was replaced by an automatic lighthouse in 1977, and the following year, the old lighthouse was disassembled and reassembled in its current location. The harbour of Akaroa is a protected marine reserve. The critically endangered Hector's dolphin calls this bay home, being the only cetacean to be endemic to New Zealand. At a size of 1.5 metres, it is the smallest species of dolphin, weighing only about 50 kilograms.
We are in Christchurch. So you can see the reparations from the damage, the 2010-2011 earthquakes in Christchurch. Inside. They're actually doing some work on it.
Two major earthquakes, 2010 and 11, they hit Christchurch. That's why this is central. You see this is centralized with all the work in progress. So the first earthquake in 2010 was a bit stronger, like close to 7 degrees Richter, but was a bit further away from Christchurch, so it didn't do many damages except probably the foundation of many buildings, or the old buildings in the center. The second one, which happened like about 6 months afterwards, was closer to Christchurch. So even though it was a bit weaker, it did most of the damage. More than 100, I think it was like 104 people died in that situation, and yeah, about 2/3 of the building on the city center were either demolished or were like so badly damaged that they had to be taken down, and now they're still rebuilding. Still now, 10 years and almost later.
After a stop at the famous Rollickin Gelato Cafe, we said goodbye to the capital of Canterbury. Upon leaving, Miranda and I had purchased a campervan for our upcoming New Zealand road trip in October. Our maiden voyage was just over an hour's drive to the town of Methven, which served as our base for the night before heading up to Canterbury's largest ski field, Mount Hutt, the following morning.
Mount Hutt. Chicky, show us how it's done. Look at those moves.
Unfortunately, we arrived at Mount Hutt on a very windy day. 2 of the chairlifts were permanently closed due to high wind, and by 2 p.m. the main chairlift had also closed. The conditions were fairly icy too, which made it a little more challenging for an already nervous Miranda, who was skiing for the first time all season.
All right, go, Chicky. All right, you're gonna use your Chicky powers. Woo! Look at that carving.
This was a huge contrast to our experience visiting the previous year, where we had perfect weather for 2 days straight. Either way, it was a fun day and a great new experience for Francesco, who had never visited the resort, and the views alone were worth the long and winding road to the top. From Mount Hutt, we made our way to Lake Ōhau Alpine Lodge, stopping along the way for dinner at Lake Tekapo. After a couple of beers and some cards at the lodge, we rested up for our ski day ahead at Ōhau Ski Field.
The dodgy road up to Ōhau ski field. A little baby chair lifts, one person at a time. Look at that beautiful view. Ōhau. Is that Pukaki? Maybe.
Ōhau is by far the smallest ski resort I'd ever been to, but what it lacked in size was made up for by its charm and spectacular views.
So we thought it was a good idea to make our way across from over here, and didn't realise that we'd be going through heavy rock garden there, so now we're going to make our way down. Alright, time to attempt the ridiculous.
With slightly warmer than usual conditions over previous weeks, Ōhau was experiencing a shortage of snow, something Francesco and I should have considered when we decided to wander off piste into a very rocky area.
Oh, strong legs. Whoa, and he's down. Oh, and I'm down. Oh. Woo! That was tiring. I don't know if we're going the right way, man. I don't think we're going the right way.
After navigating our way through the rock maze, we found some fresh snow to ski through before heading down for a lunch break and a beer.
Hey, we're alive! This way. Straight down.
At this point, I had experienced every run the small ski field had to offer, so I decided to switch my skis for my snowboard. However, before starting any runs, we had decided to climb the high peak at the top of the ski field for magnificent views.
So Francesco's magnificent idea to climb up there to get a view. I'm already tired. Francesco Garina, the most depressed hiker of all time. Whew. Yeah. Whew. Could have skied down this side.
The climb up was exhausting, but the breathtaking sights were worth every drop of sweat. The surrounding peaks are some of the highest in New Zealand, including the highest peak in the country, Aoraki on Mount Cook.
Just take it slow.
You might not have that choice.
Rather than walk down, we decided to take the easy way, which ended up being more rolling than sliding for Francesco.
That's what I just pulled myself over. This part might be faster. It's a bit crustier.
Oh, you're a rock now.
After a few more runs, we decided to brave it and seek out that fresh, soft snow we had stumbled upon earlier off-piste.
Do you remember where we went? Woo! Beautiful. Yeah.
The winding dirt road that led us down the mountain was one of the most incredible drives I had ever witnessed. Each turn opened up magnificent views of Lake Ōhau and the Hopkins Valley below. Not a bad way to end our short trip away in Canterbury. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more global travel stories.